Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business podcast. Today we've got Tyler Hurst. He's a host of the Burning Bush podcast. He's going to talk to us about the Arizona medical marijuana market. Tyler, thanks for being on the podcast with us.
Great. Thank you, Josh.
So what is the Burning Bush?
The Burning Bush is a podcast I started in summer of 2016 to chronicle my recovery from using 17 different psych meds over 16 years to using nothing. I had been on Lexapro, which is the last antidepressant I was on, for 7 years, and had some serious mental health issues. We're talking blackout rages, screaming at people running down the street on Burnside on Thanksgiving. Not kidding, that really happened. And I realized later that I needed to get off my psych meds. But once I got off my psych meds, the worst possible thing that could happen, well, at the time it seemed like the worst possible thing, I couldn't write anymore. I've been a writer since I was 14 years old, since I first joined journalism in 8th grade. I couldn't write. My brain just did not work. It just didn't work. Could not understand how to type, how to tell a story. So I started the Burning Bush podcast with a colleague of mine who is now a teacher. So I will not say his name on air, but a very good guy. And we basically went back and forth and chronicled our experiences as both cannabis writers and my mental health experience in improving it, and showing what could work, what didn't work, what might work, as well as I've had a couple of interviews with my wife as well as showing some of the collateral damage that people that poor mental health can instill. And so Burning Bush was my way to tell that story. And now I've been interviewing industry professionals and all that about how they use cannabis. And as my plant medicine exposure increased, I've changed the idea behind the podcast slightly. It's expanded from beyond cannabis to all plant medicines. And so now I try to educate people about that type of stuff. And I have a couple episodes coming up. One, I have an interview with a hemp grower out of Southern Oregon, the Plain Jane founders. And also an interview with one of the guys in the From Shock to Awe documentary, which is about a couple of Iraqi war veterans who used ayahuasca to help them recover from PTSD.
That's great. Well, so yeah, we're going to talk and dive into your journey, how you used ayahuasca and MDMA and psilocybins, and as well as your journey into yoga and running, active cannabis lifestyle, and kind of what strains worked, and as well as recommendations for some folks going through similar stuff. But first, let's dive into your day job. You work with the Arizona Department of Health Services with their medical marijuana program. Is that right?
No, they're one of the resources that I use.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
My day job is I am a copywriter for Item 9 Labs, which is a cannabis wholesaler. It's a cultivation wholesaler down here in Arizona. Let's just say I didn't have steady work for a while when I first got off my meds and was on cannabis all the time. I had some trouble finding jobs that would really work with my recovery type thing. Fortunately, one of the founders there was, let's just say, familiar with my journey because I share a lot online on Instagram about what I'm going through and how things are going. And he saw something and brought me on to be the voice of their company. And so now my job is to gather data, both research data from AZ Department of Health or other groups, and industry data, and explain that in a way that people can understand, so they can be shown how cannabis can help them deal with their issues. One of the things about the AZ market I want to talk about, we are still a medical market here. We do not have adult use cannabis or recreational use cannabis at all. The process to getting a card is about as is a little bit easier than it was in Washington and Oregon. I think that's just because they really want to help people. And so we have noticed that, or I have noticed coming from Pacific Northwest, because I don't know if I said this, I was born in Eastern Washington, and I grew up in just outside of Seattle, and then moved to Portland. So I lived in the Pacific Northwest for a total of about 27 years of my 40 years on this earth. So the AZ medical market is nowhere near as mature as the Washington, Oregon market, because Washington, Oregon sort of have cannabis as part of their DNA. AZ does not. And so in our state, we only have 238,000 cardholders, meaning that our entire state's market of legal cannabis users is less than 250,000, which is you think about it, it's a lot, but it's not really that many. But the biggest thing that we've seen is growth, just massive growth over the past couple of years. We've noticed that the biggest growth group has been older users, has been women and older users. So women in their from their 30s up into their 70s, and a lot of people 65 and up, has been huge. It's been fascinating to see that, because I think it shows a lot of people are taking cannabis much more seriously as a wellness substance rather than something to go out and just get high in, because I don't think a lot of older people are just looking to get high. And I don't think a lot of women they don't all obviously are not all mothers, but a lot of women in that bracket are looking for socially acceptable ways to deal with stress that do not involve a glass of wine, or maybe do not involve a glass of wine all the time. And so
that wine culture is so prevalent in the US. Like, you have so many things where it's like rosé all day, and it's just thrown at them all over the place.
Yep.
With Canada, a lot of the folks up there didn't want to get on a registry because they were afraid that the data would be leaked again. Having said that, where or how are Arizonans signing up for it? I would think a lot of conservatives and older folks would be nervous or wouldn't know how to do it. Where are they going to get these licenses?
We have medical marijuana clinics. We have specific clinics. And so each of these clinics have, in Arizona, naturopaths our prescribing set of doctors is much broader than it was in Washington, Oregon, because I believe in Washington, Oregon, you need to have a doctorate. You need to be an actual practicing physician. But here in Arizona, we allow naturopaths to write prescriptions. And so what you have to do is you have to go to a specific medical marijuana clinic, and you are given an exam, which is both physical and an interview. And you're asked a series of questions about, pain, about mental health, all that type of stuff. And then if you are approved, the state charges you $150, and then the doctors charge you anywhere from $100 to $200 per checkup. You are given, you put all your information online, and you are emailed. A couple days later, you are emailed a PDF that looks like a driver's license, and that's it. And then that's your card, and you're good to go. And it's good for 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. It used to be. It just got changed. It was a year up until last August, and now it's 2 years. I don't know of there's any real reason for that change, except for the fact that it was just expensive to get it renewed every year, because it was $300 for a new application and $250 every single year to renew, and that's a lot of money for a lot of people. So they did change that.
All right. Well, I don't want to hijack this report, but so this other thing, it shows that qualifying patients, I noticed that caregivers are less than, it's like zero pretty much.
Yep.
Do you have a breakdown of that?
Yeah, they don't allow, they're trying to get rid of the caregiving model. That was the problem. The caregiving model was a stopgap between the black market and the legal market. What caregivers were is they are allowed only if they can prove that they have patients that are not physically able to go get the cannabis that they need. And so it's a very strict, very, very, very small list of people that qualify for this. For instance, like in Oregon, when I last had my medical card back before they switched, my wife could be listed as a caregiver, meaning that she could go pick up cannabis for me. And I wouldn't have to worry about her getting arrested for anything if if we got in trouble, if I had cannabis in the house, as long as she wasn't using it, it was fine. But the caregiver system down here is much more like a collective that spanned the black and the legal markets. And so they just don't exist because in Arizona, there is no home grow law. All home grow is against the law unless you are not within 25 miles of a dispensary. But something like 98% of all people in Arizona live within 25 miles of a dispensary. So there's a couple of caregivers in very remote parts of the state or with very, very, very sick patients that they're taking care of that are allowed to grow for others. I know one of them, and she's actually the owner of a medical marijuana clinic. But it's very hard to get, and it's very expensive, and most people just don't bother with it.
Does this report get into what products are being offered, like who's buying what? Does it give her like a product trend analysis at all?
No, and those numbers are never shared.
From your experience, like you've been to a lot of different states, you've seen a lot of things. Is this a similar rollout as any other medical state where you see flower and pre-rolls with a slow rollout of other products? Like what's your take on what's being offered? And
ours came out all at once. And by far our most popular item is distillate pens. It's always pens. That is for a couple of reasons. One, the biggest reason is that they are sold to people who don't want to get caught smoking cannabis. They are sold to people in business suits. They are sold to moms, dads, grandparents, young college-age kids who are home for a couple of weeks that don't want their parents to know that they're using cannabis. Distillate pens are by far the biggest single product that's sold in Arizona because it's so much easier. I think that one of those reasons is because of heat here in Arizona. We tend not to be outside as much. And if we are outside, we're not out there for very long. And so up in the Northwest, you can, light a joint and you can go walking around. No big deal, right? All year. Here, we don't quite do that as much. So we're more looking for things we can use inside.
A huge cultural difference. Yeah, I mean, we love our pre-rolls. Washington sells more pre-rolls than any other state. 1 in 5 has at least a pre-roll.
Yeah, and see, when I go back to Washington State, was the last time I was there in November. I went to the city I grew up in does not allow dispensaries. Kent, Washington, you need to get on it. Does not. So I went right to the edge to Covington and all I bought were pre-rolls. So yeah, I definitely come from that culture, and I very much appreciate it. And I switch between pre-rolls and my Volcano vaporizer.
Did you go to 420 in Covington, or did you go to Euphoria?
I went to the one right on the border with southern border, so it must have been 420. The one right, it's in a house right by 7-Eleven, right by Highway 18. Might have been 420.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. It's
right across from the Aerostream trailers.
Yeah. Yes, that's where I went.
Yeah, it's a good place. They've been around since medical. I lived in Kent a while back, like 7-8 years ago, and yeah, they've been around a long time.
Yeah, I think when I first got my very first card when I actually lived in Portland. My very first cannabis card was Washington card, and my very first delivery was at my parents' house, and I believe it was from 420. So it's funny. I've been there both as a medical patient and as a rec patient.
So breaking down this Arizona medical marijuana patient characteristics, 25% are 18 to 30, 30% are between 51 and 70. And then you get, your 21% between that are in their 30s. So fairly normal. 40% are women. Number one demographics of pre-rolls is women, 55 and older, white women specifically. I don't know how they aggregate that data, but I love Headset and all the stuff they get.
Yeah.
I would have thought it was like younger guys buying pre-rolls, but it's not. I think it's that whole conservative thing. It was like, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to burn this. I'm going to get rid of it. And they don't want to bring that pen back home.
I also think that a lot of women tend to be more health conscious than guys are. And so I think they're switching from alcohol, from, wine and beer to cannabis. because I think they're just a little bit ahead of the curve than most dudes are. Because I think it's manly to take a dab, right? It's manly to take a dab. It's not as manly to just have a joint. And I think that's part of it. But
do you have the disposable
cool
vape pens? I can't remember the brand that was here in Washington in like 2015, but I would go and buy those and use it and then just throw it away. That way you don't have to worry about charging the pen. And
my company has my company, Itemine Labs has one. They're called cocktails, and they're flavored after actual cocktails like old fashioned and strawberry daiquiri and stuff like that. I've had one in Portland too. It was I can't remember the brand, but I've had those too. Super convenient, great for a weekend. My only thing is I don't like having to throw away something, but at the same time, it's really, really convenient just to be able to have, 2 days worth of puffs and then not have to worry about the damn thing after that. So.
I would be curious if the whole health conscious movement away from alcohol to cannabis and from flower to vape will eventually just occur. I don't know. That's what I was wondering about, like certain products that I've seen that are gone now. Like bottled coffee, it's like non-existent. It's too expensive to have bottled coffee. And disposable vape pens, they were here, and then they're like, nah, never mind, prices are gone. And then dose oil, I love the tankers, the 1 gram syringes with oil. They were $18, now they're $30. Like they realized the prices were too low, or their competition in the business. I don't know.
I don't see those at all here. I don't see the tankers at all here, not even a little bit. I think that's partly because the culture is a little bit different. I know that one of the things that I really liked about Pacific Northwest is anytime I go into the cannabis, the Northwest Cannabis Club, is people would have pizza boxes full of slabs. You just can't do that in Arizona. It's too hot. You can't walk around with slab. Even in the winter maybe, but it's just not part of the culture here. We just don't do that. That was a big sort of realization that we're just much more into cartridges and pods, and anything you can take with you, put in your pocket to be discreet and sort of hide it is a big thing for Arizona, which is why that live resin in carts and pods is really popular here, because live resin tastes great. And the earliest pods tasted terrible. But then they sort of figured it out. And so live resin, I think, is a lot of people's way to get like, hey, I'm getting as close to cannabis as possible without actually smoking flower. And my live resin pod is the way that I can do it.
There's a healthier perception. I was up at the Lift Expo in Vancouver, BC, and I was listening to one of the speakers talk about the sales for the Canadian space in North America. And live resin had a 400 and something % increase year over year, partly because it's new, and any brand new product is going to have parabolic rates if it's popular. But it's also driven because of the health perception of it, that it's no pesticides and it just sounds good. I think it tastes amazing though. The terpene profiles on a lot of those from Avitas or Avitas, sativa spelled backwards.
Oh, nice.
It's a good brand up here.
Yeah, I've when I first got here, I had live resin in cartridges, and I really didn't like it. Also, I sort of swore off it for a while, and then pods came out. We both had Itemine Labs has Apollo pods. True Dispensary has their drip oils, and then PAX has all theirs. And the live resin, then it felt like I was putting my face in wet weed that's on fire and breathing in, which was an amazing experience. And so they finally sort of caught up to that, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, there's some really good strains. Jean Guy, or spelled Gene Guy, is good. See, what's another like the most pungent, funky strain you've had?
Lately, I'll tell you, it's Paiho. Paiho and Khalifa Kush.
Okay.
We had this one of the Trike concentrates here in Arizona is the licensee for Khalifa Kush here in Arizona. And they had this Khalifa Kush, and it was just a weed. I mean, it's just funky, and that little. I hate to use this description. I need to find a better one. That a little bit like shit. There's some. It doesn't taste like shit though, but there's a little bit of that dank funkiness in there. Yeah. It was fantastic. As a live resin, especially.
Yeah, UK cheese is another one that just smells so good.
Cheese is a good one. Yeah.
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 So all I need to tell somebody if I'm going down there, pay them a couple $100, whatever, tell them I have chronic pain. Apparently that's
Mm-hmm.
more than 90% of the reasons for card
Mm-hmm.
holders down there. Is it as simple as just saying I have pain, or do I have to bring a file to prove I've had pain?
It is much easier if you bring a file to prove you've had pain. But if you talk to the doctor, if you're honest, I mean, the doctors aren't from everything that I've talked to them. I've been to 4 different ones. They're not here to try to catch you into something that they want to help you. The doctors don't get any more money depending on they don't get paid more depending on the more patients they sign off on. But yeah, chronic pain is the easiest. I had my full doctor's workup when I came down here, and was able to just hand off my papers to them, and they said, "Oh yeah, you have chronic pain and psoriasis, and okay, you're good. Yeah, we'll just let you go." So I fortunately had all that ready to go, only because I had practiced in Portland, because I had been to those and had the records. But yeah, it's not impossible. And I think it's a lot of it's on the honor system. You know, if you want to lie to get a cannabis card, if you want to be that guy, great. But for most people, I think people are more afraid of the stigma of trying to get a card, and so they're trying to open that up by not being dickish about it.
I remember being really nervous and paranoid almost about running into a coworker. You know, I worked in the bank and finance industry, and I was a caregiver for a friend who has recently passed from multiple sclerosis. And so I just didn't want to run into somebody who had a dispensary, and I was always nervous, and it's never happened, you know, but it's just one of those things.
It's weird you say that, because I don't think I mean, bud tenders notwithstanding, I don't think I've ever run into anyone that I've known in the waiting room dispensary ever. And I went to 150 dispensaries in Portland. I've been to almost all of them here. I don't know how that's possible. Like, how is it possible? I've never seen one that I know.
It is funny. You would think more often. I go to the grocery store, I run into people I know, and you know, that's the same thing. I'm going to get my devil's lettuce, you know. And so when I was in Portland for the High Times Cup recently, fourth quarter 2019, I ran into like 3 people I knew, and a couple of them were from Seattle. Allison Drayson was one of them. We both drove down there to participate in the cup. It was kind of funny.
Cool.
But looking at this breakdown of females, males, and ages, it's interesting looking at the younger group and the older group specifically, because 65% of people 80 years and older, 65% are males. So I imagine those males probably want some pain or relief, versus the younger side, 30 and younger, almost 80% are males. So is that the recreation versus medical graph right here?
Yeah. I would think so. I also think that it's just more socially acceptable for men to do that. I think we feel more comfortable asking for that type of stuff, and I think that women tend to feel a little weirder about it. But for the 18 to 30, yeah, it's more males. More, I would tell you that I think it's because more guys don't take care of their bodies. And so they start to hurt when they are no longer kids. Like, I know that I hit about 20 and I was like, wow, I don't heal. I'm still okay, but I don't heal quite as fast as I used to. And then I think for the older crowd, they sort of want to space out. I don't know if it's just physical pain. I think a lot of it's mental anguish too. I think a lot of women who lived that long have figured everything out, and I don't think the guys have quite yet.
That's a good topic for another day.
Yeah.
All right. Actively qualifying patients, designated caregivers. So you can grow for people. So that's awesome. What's the limit?
We can have 2 ounces.
2 ounces.
As far as limit.
Like if I want to grow, you can grow down there, right? You can cultivate for somebody?
No. Only caregivers. So only 200 people can. Yeah, the limit is I think 6 plants per patient.
6 plants, and you can't have a co-op like in Seattle. It was 15, but you could do it for like 3 people, so you could have 45. I mean, it's like some.
Yeah, you used to. I mean, that's how our model used to work. And when the law was first passed in 2010 or 2011, there was co-ops essentially, and I think that a couple. I mean, I don't want to blame anybody, but I think a couple of people went a little too far in that, and then I think the state freaked out and brought them all back, which is unfortunate. And you know, that happens everywhere. You're never going to prevent it.
I still get people on Facebook ask me if I want to buy black market stuff. I had
So do
somebody
I.
send me a text. I don't even know how, they got my number, but they were asking me about divergence and how to get, I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would you, do you sell bathtub gin? Are you selling cigarettes out of your trunk? Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's weird. I get hit up on Instagram a lot. I'm like, guys, what? Why? Don't do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, looking at how much product is sold, looks like cannabis, there's about 246,000 ounces. That's 15,000 pounds sold in March alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad for a medical
No,
program.
it's a lot.
That's kind of
Yeah.
conservative.
Yeah. And that counts. Yeah. It's an absolute ton. We do use a lot here.
Rural
I
or urban? Do you think that Phoenix smokes more than the rest of the state, or is it evenly sparsed out, or are the people in rural areas smoking more? What's happening?
I would think there's a higher, in terms of per capita, I think there's a higher per capita percentage of people smoking in the rural areas. It's just our population is so concentrated in Maricopa County in the Phoenix area. I mean, if you compare it to like King County up in Washington, the Maricopa County is 4 or 5 times as populous compared to the rest of the state in the comparison. Like everyone lives in Phoenix. Almost everybody lives in Phoenix. But the grows are mostly outside of Phoenix, and so that's where all the stuff is happening. I mean, we don't have like a Humboldt County or anything anywhere, but a lot of people are reporting that. I'm surprised as to me because I see a lot of our delivery reports for the company I work for 99 Labs, and the rural dispensaries do almost as well as the local ones. When you compare them per population, and that really surprised me. So I think people in Arizona has a huge libertarian population. So I think a lot of them are very into cannabis for a lot of political type reasons. You're like, yeah, I can do it, so I'm going to type of thing. And it's gone really well so far. All the younger people, a lot of the recreational users, we all live in Phoenix. I mean, all those people live in Phoenix, so it's a tough comparison because of the skewed population.
Talk to me about this transaction map here. I see a couple of blips, and I'm going to assume that this huge increase on the 13th of May was people running out to hoard cannabis, not knowing that Arizona was going to deem dispensaries essential businesses.
Yeah,
that's what that huge blip is.
Yeah, we saw a couple of huge spikes when the lockdown started to take effect, and people were unsure. And then we saw another blip on the 20th, which is right before his first actual order. Another blip on the end of March, which was right before the final order that not shut down everything, but closed most businesses. But a lot of it is as simply as paydays.
Well, it's also on a Friday. Every single one of those, the 3/6 is a Friday, 3/12 is a Friday,
Yep.
3/20 is a Saturday, and then 3/27 is a Friday. So your Friday sales are a lot like Seattle, where at least a third of the edibles sell between 3 and 5 on Fridays. You guys have huge sales on Fridays.
It's very paycheck driven. Every dispensary tells me that most of their sales happen when people get paid, period. So that means a lot of our customers are people living paycheck to paycheck, who are using cannabis to get through their days most of the time.
And are we going to see in this PDF, like what they're, I think I already asked that, like what, I want to know the trends, like what kind of products people prefer. Are they buying edibles? Are they buying pre-rolls?
Edibles has not hit as hard as we expected it to.
Now, is that because you guys have everything open right now? Golfing is essential business. Like you guys don't have any lockdowns, so you're not on the edibles like everyone else is.
Correct.
Interesting.
Correct. So a lot of the biggest sellers are still the pens. Still the pens. They're flying out the door. We cannot keep them in stock in most places. I'm not really sure why the edibles haven't taken off. I think a lot of the reason is because we don't have a lot of choices in edibles down here. It's almost all candy. I know in Washington and Oregon, they have a much bigger, expansive offerings. You don't just have to get a brownie or a lollipop. You can get some actual food. I don't think we even have any non-candy brands that have survived for very long.
That's
Yeah, it really
terrible that
does.
everything has so much sugar when we know that sugar creates all these issues from restless leg syndrome to, diabetes, dementia, heart disease, cancer, spontaneous combustion,
Yeah.
all that
Yeah,
stuff.
there was one of my friends who used to work in the dispensary system and got disillusioned with it, got let go once because she started an argument with her boss, because she was saying, why are we recommending these candy for cancer patients? Like,
Oh, dude.
even if the cannabis stops, even if it slows down the cancer growth, the sugar is going to accelerate it. What the hell are we doing? RSO is big down here for that reason. So they do a good job with that of making cancer fighting mixes available, but for whatever reason, edibles just have not taken off as anything besides sort of just quick candy type things, and almost all of it's pure distillate, which is disappointing to me. But
I'm going to be critical of Arizona for a second and ask, who the hell measures edibles in pounds? 897.5 pounds of edibles sold in March. What does that mean?
that's actual weight.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
just
what does it mean though? Like,
it.
how many? Do you know how many
Yeah.
that represents, or what?
No,
what that
no,
even
no
means?
idea. They don't publish much. Like there are the medical marijuana program, because again, I think because of our libertarian sort of ideals, there was no reporting involved. There was no breakdown of sales per dispensary. There's no breakdown of products. Those sort of records just aren't kept. Because the medical marijuana program is not run under the Liquor Control Board like it is in Oregon, and I think Washington too. Isn't it run on the same?
Mm-hmm.
It's run under the Department of Health here in Arizona, and so really they focus on a very high level administrative view, and they have no experience in in the same type of reporting that alcohol would have. You need to break down beer, wine, and booze, at least beer, wine, and liquor. But we do it very, very simply. I don't know if it's because the Department of Health just doesn't care or doesn't have a mandate to do it. I don't really know, but it's just not something people keep track of, and it's really strange to me.
Yeah, to clarify, I think the Department of Agriculture is involved as of about 18 months ago. I think it was mid 2019 or something like that, early 2019.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, all the Department of Health does is they inspect dispensaries and grows, and then put out reports, and that's really it. I mean, they're very, very, very like almost a non-entity when it comes to how things work in the Arizona medical market.
What about new neat or niche products? Are you seeing anything like suppositories? Are you seeing like an asthmatic inhaler, dab tabs?
I've seen all of those. The biggest one so far has been the inhalers, although they haven't quite got them right yet, but I can tell they're trying pretty hard. Just because of the inhalers, I think because it's so dry here, people appreciate just having an inhaler to be able to feel better. Dab tabs are great, haven't really taken off, even though they're quite good. There hasn't been a whole lot of niche products. A lot of it is because Arizona doesn't have a whole lot of independent dispensaries anymore. Like, most of our dispensaries are owned by Harvest, Curaleaf, and the big out-of-state groups. And so they all carry similar menus. And if you can't get into a Harvest or a Curaleaf, then you're screwed, because they control so much of the market, especially in Maricopa County, which where everything takes place. And that's become a very frustrating thing for a lot of people. I mean, and to their credit, Curaleaf and Harvest and the bigger people, they want consistent, branded, specific products they know will sell quickly. They don't have the time or the patience to bring let's say a trail mix or something that's a non-sugar type thing into the store, because they just don't. There's no branding and no marketing behind it. They don't want to waste the time with it on the shelves.
And so, being a medical program, they don't differentiate between owners. So you can grow and produce and sell. A retail owner can be a producer and processor as well. They don't
you can
have
be vertically
those.
yeah, you can be completely vertically integrated. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no, and we are the market in Arizona is medical in name only. I
Hmm.
mean, there's the better companies are doing a really good job of the educational part, but there is no direction from the state or anything like that in regards to any sort of medical use. It is very much a recreational market that requires money to get in or pain to get in.
When will that occur officially? Is it going to be on the ballot anytime
It's
soon?
on the ballot in November for
Hmm.
adult use. I know that there are some of us that have issues with the bill because there's a lot of like DUI type stuff in there that people are freaked out about because we're still treating cannabis as a far more dangerous substance than alcohol, and no one can understand why. There is a large, very powerful sheriff's association and a couple of county prosecutors that still want cannabis to be illegal. So there's been a lot of compromises in the next bill that I don't know if a lot of patients are going to be able to accept that, which is frustrating. Um, but we'll see. One thing, professionally, I very much want cannabis to go recreational. It's very, very good for me for that. But as a medical patient, I don't know if the bill is enough to really protect people, and that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Medical's been dead in every single
Yeah.
recreational state, so it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully that'll come back in a wave where you have these LPs in Canada and these huge multi-state operators, and that'll be the macro, that's great. Grow outdoors and make your products,
Yep.
but for the real uh, producer, for that discerning customer, that's going to be like the microbrew equivalent. So as
Yep.
soon as we can kind of leapfrog ahead with the economy and everything else, I think that's the next
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah, and I think as Arizona's market matures, we'll see a broader range of customers, because right now we have the connoisseurs. We have you and me, the picky, snobby, elitist. I'll only have rosin from a specific strain type people. And then
Mhm.
we have people buying purely on price because they're medical patients. They don't have a whole lot of money. There's not a lot of mid-level. And I think that's a huge area that has a lot of room for growth here in Arizona. When the recreational side comes in, a lot of mid-level people who have a little bit of money, but also don't can't really don't really care about the high end type of stuff. It'll be nice to see that market sort of fill in. I don't know if that happened in Washington and Oregon. I'm assuming it did because the markets are so much bigger there. But it'll be nice to see those mid-level type of things.
Mm-hmm. Did you get out on 420? Did you see any deals online and or in person?
Yeah, they were not as prevalent as I thought they would be, because we have been in social distancing protocols the entire time, especially dispensaries. So people were in line for hours on 420, and that just got old really fast.
So you
Um,
didn't have really like online pre-orders?
we did have orders, but it takes a while to pick them up.
Gotcha.
That's the problem. It just takes a while to pick up. We don't have drive-throughs or anything like that, unfortunately.
What's your opinion about how most people heard about the deals? Was it a billboard? Was it email, text, just going into
Email.
the store?
Most of it's emails and daily text is how a lot of people do it. We do have billboards here, but only dispensaries can advertise, and I don't think they can advertise actual sales. So a lot of it is email newsletters and then texts to send people to sites. Almost every single dispensary that I've ever been to sends out a daily text of their deals, and I don't remember that happening as often in Oregon and Washington. I remember them having deals, but not all the time. Here we have them all the time on something different. And I mean, a lot of products, not like 20% off all edibles, not 20% off one specific type of edible.
So
A lot of
specifically, what were some of those deals that you saw across segments? Flower, pre-rolls, vape, concentrates. Do you
a
remember
lot of
what
it
those
is
deals?
yeah, it's BOGO or 2-for-1 vapes are big, and then percentage off of edibles. Flower is almost never on sale in Arizona.
Hmm.
It's for whatever reason, it has the lowest product margins. That makes sense, but it is less likely to be on sale than anything else. Much more likely to find, you can get pens on sale every single day. You can find concentrate on sale somewhere every day. You can find a percentage off edibles, but flower is almost never on sale
What's
unless you buy joints in 5 packs or something like that. Then you can get the pre-rolls for a little bit less.
what's the average price for a pre-roll, 1 gram of flower, and an ounce?
A pre-roll is about $10 for a gram of flour. For decent stuff, it's 15 to 20. For the ounces, for good ounces, is probably about 300.
Wow. How about for a 1 gram vape cart and a gram of concentrate?
For a 1 gram vape cart, for 1 gram, you're looking at about $60 to $70. A lot of it, like the bigger guys will have like a Timeless, like a national brand will have a $72 vape cart. And then for concentrates, you're looking at about $60 for a gram of concentrate for decent stuff.
Wow. Yeah, it's about, I think that was Nevada's rollout. It's really expensive. Even California, when they rolled out too, there was about $60 for 1 gram of concentrate. And you just kind of see the commoditization after it becomes a regulated state, the prices just drop drastically. So
yes, we have, $80 quarters of flour. Now, it's good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's good flour. It's just, I'm just not used to having to pay that much. I remember I went up to, when I was last in Portland a year and a half ago, it took like $100 and I got a shitload of stuff. And I was like, wow, I forget how amazing this is. And it's all really good. Yeah. But yeah, like let's say like an infused pre-roll, like a nice infused pre-roll, maybe a Canagar type thing is a $25 purchase here. And that would probably be a $15 purchase in the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. So it's just a lot more expensive.
Do you find stuff sitting on the shelf for a long time? I recently went to Oregon's Finest across from the convention center, and I got a Bull Run Canagar, paid, full price for it, $100 or whatever. And then after the fact, I looked at the harvest date and it was like 13 months old.
Yes, all the time, especially when it comes to flour. Just because flour, for whatever reason, it dries out quicker here. Obviously, we're in the desert, so that's clearly an issue. But flour tends to sit a lot longer than people would like it to. And I've noticed that a couple of times. I've been looking at it, I'm like, wow, that flour is, Jesus, that's a little bit older than I expected it to be. That and some of the disposable pens, surprisingly. Disposables aren't as big down here. I don't know why.
Yeah, interesting. Where can people reach you? Like, what's a good social media, or if somebody wants to check out your podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, I am TD Hurst everywhere online. I am also on Instagram at the Burning Bush podcast. You can also search the Burning Bush podcast on iTunes. I'm there as well. Yeah, my Instagram's the best way to get a hold of me, because that I'll tell all my stories, and I'll tell all my embarrassing stories in the story section, so you can read them and then they'll disappear forever, hopefully. But yeah, TD Hurst or the Burning Bush podcast, it's whatever online you can find me.
Awesome. We'll leave some links in the comments below. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we're going to roll this one up. I want to thank my guest, Tyler Hurst. He's a host of the Burning Bush podcast. Tyler, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Josh. This is great.
Yeah. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.